Welcome for joining us. I am Tara, the lead Nexus provider with Telemedica, and I wanted to jump on a live today to touch on a few key important things about the PACT Act that just recently passed. Um, Most of the time, a lot of these presumptives don't require additional support documents like Nexus letters and DBQs from private providers, but sometimes they do. And so I wanted to come on here to highlight what I think are a couple of the key important factors regarding this act, as well as talk a little bit about when to engage private services such as the Nexus team with Telemedica. So this new law, it adds a lot of different benefits for several different categories of veterans. It's not limited to just exposures from Gulf War. And so I want to talk today about the top two items in this act. And so the first thing I want to talk about are the new presumptive conditions. So there were 23 newly added presumptive service connected conditions, and they are spread between a couple different categories of veterans. Now, the first I'll talk about are the Gulf War and post 9/11 veterans, and they added quite a few to that group. They added a lot of cancers, particularly head and brain cancers, kidney cancers. They specifically say gastrointestinal cancers of any type. That is from the mouth to the backside. So any cancer in that system counts. And that's one that was pretty huge of a category. They talk a little bit about melanomas. I know there are several people who have been trying to get skin cancers or skin lesions connected. So melanomas on that list. There's also some reproductive cancers and lung cancers. They also have pancreatic cancers, lymphoma. So this is a very large category of cancers that were actually added to the Gulf War and post 9/11 veterans. Other illnesses that were added, we're talking about the chronic bronchitis, COPD. So last time we had talked about, or last time I had posted or did a video about presumptive conditions, it was talking about rhinitis, sinusitis, and asthma. The additional respiratory conditions, COPD, chronic bronchitis, were also added. There's also other types of emphysema were added. Their pleuritis, fibrosis, sarcoidosis was added. So a lot of other illnesses are all about the lung system, the respiratory system. And so this falls very applicable to a lot of people. The only thing that I would caution you about these respiratory illnesses, or where I see that you may have some issues, is if you are a smoker. So a lot of times smoking is a very common connection for this, but I'm hoping connection to these illnesses. But I'm hoping, because these are presumptive conditions now, that having your service in the Gulf War and post 9/11 areas, that this will sort of help those cases, because that's a lot of the last few years I've seen a lot of cases denied, and a lot of the denial letters were reading to the fact that you were a smoker or you had a history of smoking, and that's the number one cause of lung cancer. And so it's been an uphill battle, I think, for a lot of those veterans, even if they have a very short window of smoking. And so hopefully these new presumptives will help those individuals. The additional thing that they added to Gulf War and post 9/11 veterans is service areas. So they talk about two different time periods. We'll talk about the older time period after 1990. So after August 2nd, 1990, if you served in Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, there's this difference, UAE, or in the airspaces above these locations. These are all new locations that were added to the presumptive service connection. So not only are we adding extra conditions, we're also adding extra areas of service. So those are a very important key thing that includes a lot more veterans who qualify for presumptive service connection. Now, service post 9/11, they've also added additional spaces. Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt are also added into these potential qualifying areas. So it is one thing to know when you served, but then you also need to know what conditions were added and the new service areas. So I highly advise people to refile and relook at those documents and try to figure out if you qualify for one of these newer presumptive service based on not just the condition itself, but location of service, because it can be very, very important for your claim. Jumping to the Vietnam veterans and Agent Orange exposure, they've got some new additions in this PACT Act as well. 2 new conditions were added. Now, one is not as it's not going to be as many people. It's monoclonal gammopathy of an undetermined significance. Really, that's going to be a small percentage of people. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then it doesn't apply to you. It's really going to be very specific. You know if you got this. But the one that is actually most exciting is high blood pressure or hypertension. That has been added as an Agent Orange presumptive. So that is great. There are also new areas of service that they qualified for Agent Orange exposure, which, again, just like the post 9/11 and Gulf War veterans, this is huge because I've seen a lot of veterans who have applied for Agent Orange exposure and get denied because they can't prove they have a qualified service location. And this is going to be huge to extend that presumptive service list to these people as well. And so this act also includes areas of American Samoa, Guam, let's see where else, Cambodia. So there's some Thai military bases on here as well. So once the official information gets filtered through and updated, I believe it has been updated on the VA website. I'm not quite sure if it all is up there yet. I know there is a lag usually because the announcement of the passage is in the moment, and then by the time it gets all posted up to the VA can take a few days to a couple weeks to get all of the details posted there. But if you have been denied for service connection and you're a Vietnam veteran, possibly exposed to Agent Orange, just double check and look at the new service areas to make sure that if you got denied from that for that reason, that you may now qualify based off of this. The last area that this act has included changes to were radiation exposure locations. And so if you were in some locations, there's one in Spain, there's another one in Air Force Base in Greenland. If you were in these new locations, they are now qualified locations for where you may have been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. So we're not talking about radiation exposure in like a hospital setting, such as nurse, technician, x-ray technician. Usually you're pretty well protected and you're usually wearing those little devices that calculate how much radiation you've been exposed to. And they're 99.9% of the time well below any kind of dangerous levels in order to cause any kind of medical conditions. We're talking about larger exposure to radiation with exposure to nuclear weapons, or larger sort of exposures in locations, not necessarily those smaller doses exposed to a hospital radiology machine. But these additional locations range anywhere from the late 1960s all the way through 1980. So if you fit into that category that you were possibly in a location, possibly radiation exposure during the late 60s to 1980, then double check these locations, because if you were denied service connection or thought you might have been exposed, you now might qualify for presumptive to radiation exposure. A second major piece that I want to talk about in this post about this act is about healthcare benefits. And so previously, you had about 5 years, I think it was 5 years, that you had to sign up with the VA. And that was a time limit, and that you were cut off. You couldn't sign up for the benefits after that. They've expanded that to now 10 years after leaving service. And they've implemented a 1-year open enrollment period. So if you fall outside of that 10-year window, you can also sign up and get evaluated to see if you qualify for free VA healthcare. So there are some criteria. We'll first talk about the criteria if you were discharged from service after 2013, so the more recent time period, that's about 10 within 10 years, you must have at least these to be true. You were discharged or released on or after October 1st, 2013, and you must meet at least one of these criteria. You served in a theater of combat during a period of war in the Persian Gulf, or you served in combat during or after November 11th, 1998. If you were if you qualify for that, you can sign up for the VA for healthcare. If you were discharged before 2013, there you qualify for that 1 year special open enrollment period. And the qualifying criteria for that is that you were discharged or released between September 11th, 2001 and October 1st, 2013, and you have not enrolled in VA healthcare before. And you must have one of the qualifying active duty service periods where you served in a theater of combat operations during the Persian Gulf War, or during periods of period of hostilities after November 11th, 1998. So there are some qualifying factors, whether you served before 2013 or after 2013 in the post 9/11 group that they've added for this. There's other funds in this act that go towards education, go towards research into continuing the ongoing efforts of researching what harmful effects may have happened to service members in their deployed environments. And so that's all very important, but we won't really see the fruits of that until much later on. But those are also components that were involved in this act. Like I said, today I wanted to highlight quickly those two larger areas, whether the new presumptive conditions for all of the groups that have gotten it, the new locations that are added as presumptive locations, as well as signing up for VA healthcare, because those are two very important things to get from this act. And I think it's worth everybody's time to take a look at your claim, take a look at your service time periods, and see if any of these new benefits qualify for you, because we've seen quite a few who I feel like fall in this gray area over the last several years that we either have written nexus letters for or have discussed their case with, where they fall in this gray area of, we believe that they're falling into a presumptive condition, but it's just not meeting the clear criteria from the VA. And so now this expanded criteria should help to have a lot of other service members qualified. So last thing I want to talk about today is, what do you do if you find yourself qualified? Well, you should refile your claim. If it's a presumptive condition, you don't need a nexus for that. If you fall under the criteria, this new criteria, you don't need a nexus for this. But some people have still that gray area where they're not sure if they're going to get service connected for it. So I tell people, file for it. If you get denied and you may need some additional help in connecting the dots and showing and highlighting how your specific condition and situation falls in this potential presumptive category, even if it's not clearly meeting all of the check boxes, that's where the Nexus team at Telemedica may be able to help you. This is something that I don't anticipate us seeing a lot of you who meet the criteria for presumptive, because I don't think you need us. I think it's for those people who really have that gray area or something that might be missing, or some specific reason that the VA has denied your claim for presumptive service connection, that we really, as experts, would help in those situations. So I anticipate not seeing and talking to many of you for a little while for this, but I wanted to come on to really highlight the two important things, as well as to enforce re-looking at your claims and filing now that these things have passed. And if you need us, we are here for you. We do offer chart review services. And so if you're not sure of what you need, you can always sign up for the Nexus team. Sign up, we'll take a look at all of your evidence, and we will be able to communicate more clearly on your specific case and situation, what the evidence shows. medically for the medical conditions of this. You can reach us and sign up at our website, Telemedica, or you can call and reach out to us at our phone number to, there's our website posted up there and our phone number, and get in touch with us or our customer service team in order to see how we can help. If there are any specific questions related to this that any of you have, I might be able to answer some. I just took a look at the comments. Hi. I see some familiar names on this list here. Like I said, if there's any specific questions that you have or any specific questions that you come across, if you're watching the replay of this or you think about it later, don't hesitate to reach out because our team does get questions back to me for answers that people post on here after the fact. So I do answer questions if there are any. Let's see. Oh, you're welcome for all our help. That's what we're here for. We're here to help because, like I said, it's tough out there. I don't know why it's so difficult for people to get the service connection that they deserve and that they need, but it is one reason why we're here serving all of you. So you guys are all great. Thanks for all the support. All right. Well, this was a short, sweet one. Like I said, I just wanted to bring to your attention those key items I think are very important in this act because there's a lot of information out there and it's sometimes a lot to go through page by page. So it's one of those things that it's really important, I think, to get the information out to the veterans fast and quickly, even if it's not something that we're selling services for. I think it's important for us to show our support for you guys and to give you that information so that you can make the best decisions for your claims and come find us when you need us, not necessarily all the time, but come to us for some information as well as these services. So it looks like trying to call for combat. Steve had mentioned Fort McLennan, Agent Orange exposure, and Gulf War combat vet. So just touching real quick on Agent Orange, relating to that Agent Orange exposure. This is not just in country. This can also be in transport. If you were a veteran who may have been exposed to Agent Orange just by by transportation on the military base where where Agent Orange was stored or transported, that might be something where you qualify as well. It's an important point. Thailand and hypertension. I could talk to James to ask a question about Thailand and hypertension. There are areas that are now qualified for Agent Orange exposure, and it's any U.S. or Royal Thai military base in Thailand. And there are specific dates relating to that. It's January 9, 1962 through June 30th, 1976, to where they're talking about with that. But yeah, now that high blood pressure is one of the Agent Orange exposure presumptives, that would qualify for Thailand if you were on any of the U.S. or Royal Thai military bases. All right. Well, keep things posted. Keep posting any questions. We will check back in with you and we'll get those answers to you as soon as we can. But I want to thank everyone for joining me today for this quick, short, and sweet live on the two important things that I find the PACT Act helps us and our veterans out with. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.